Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Conquer the Chaos podcast. I am Clate Mask, your host and co-founder and CEO of Keep. And I am so excited today because the guest that we'll be talking with and that you'll get to learn from is someone who I was on her podcast a few weeks ago, and it was so much fun. We had just a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to you learning from her experience, her brilliance, her entrepreneurial fire and passion. And so let me welcome to the Conquer the Chaos podcast, Dr. Darnyelle Jervey. Darnyelle, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Clate. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to have you here. It was so much fun when we talked a couple weeks ago. Why don't you take just a second and share with our audience a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I am first and foremost an unapologetic God girl. I love God. I believe that businesses with a spiritual foundation go farther faster. I am the award-winning Inc. 5000 CEO of Incredible One Enterprises. We work with six-figure service-based entrepreneurs, and we transform them into CEOs who make, move, and will ultimately leave millions of dollars. So
I love it. I love it. Fantastic. Love every bit of that. And I love what you do to help entrepreneurs. You know, one of the things that I share all the time as I'm talking with entrepreneurs is a little bit of a reality check for when people start their business. You know, they think, hey, it's gonna be so great. I'm no boss. I'll be able to, there's no ceiling on what I can earn, and those things are true. And yet, you find pretty quickly that when you have clients, customers, you don't get to just make up all the rules.
Right.
You have to. You do have some people that are kind of dictating some of the things that you need to do. And in terms of the money side of things, what we've learned at Keep over 20 years of working with small businesses is it takes on average about 3 years for an entrepreneur to get to where they've got a comfortable living the way they had in their regular job before they started their business. So, call that maybe $100,000 a year of income. And 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears on average, before somebody gets there. Tell me what you've seen. What does that square with what you've seen? Because I know your ambition is to do something very different.
Yeah.
But does that square with kind of the average of what you see?
Yeah. So when a client comes to us these days, they're already making six or multiple six figures in their business. So anywhere from $1 to $300,000 is typically where they are. But that's what their business is earning, not what they're paying themselves, right?
Yeah.
We typically see that. And our clients are by and large in business 3 to 5 years by the time they come to us. Every once in a while, we get a client that's within their first year and they got to the six-figure mark right away. But in general, they've been in business 3 to 5 years. And of that 1 to 300,000, they're probably bringing home 50 to 80,000 themselves, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So in our work, we help them build a foundation that will be scalable and sustainable to make $1 million in 1 to 3 years. So we have clients every year, their first year working with us in our Move to Millions Mastermind, they cross the $1 million mark. And by doing some, they immediately give themselves a raise. So they start to be able to take home six figures.
Yeah.
Other clients, it takes longer. It really just depends on where they are and what they already have in place and what we have to help them to tighten so that they have that sustainability. Often our clients are starting from scratch every single time they want to do anything in their business. So we're really helping them to develop the right systems and infrastructure. So not just the standard operating procedures or what I'm sure you would call the standard automation procedures,
Right.
but also looking at who they are, what's the problem that they solve, what are the desires they bring into the lives of their clients, and how is that packaged and priced to help them to get to where they are profitable in their business much faster than they are, right?
Okay.
A lot of people, they walk through the door, because we work with service-based businesses, thinking that lower ticket is the way to go, but lower ticket actually isn't the way to go, because we expend the same energy when we're selling something that's $1,000 as we do when we're selling something that's $10,000 or $20,000.
That's right. Okay, there's so much gold here that I want to dig into. The first thing, kind of sort of foundationally, you're serving service businesses that are doing six figures by the time they start working with you. A lot of times they've been in business for a few years already to get to that point. And then, like you said, second thing is their business might be doing 100 to 300,000 when they come to you, but they're taking home maybe 50 to 80. And that's, by the way, very consistent with what we see from our customers as well. We also serve, 6, 7, 8 figure service businesses, and we see that journey as they go when they first hit that six figures to then getting to seven and then moving to eight. And there's a dynamic that happens that you're kind of calling out. It's sort of it's embedded in the things that you're saying, and it's that wrestle between what the business is earning top line and what the business owner is taking home and putting into the bank in terms of the bottom line.
Yeah.
So, talk a little bit about what you see where business owners, because I'm imagining you see something very similar to us, that sometimes they get fixated on the top line and it's not getting to the bank account for the business owner the way that the business owner would have expected.
Correct.
When they think, oh, if the business is making 500,000, by that point for sure I'll be doing 200 or whatever, and then by the time they get there they're like, oh crap, that's not what's happening.
Right.
So what do you see?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Like, one of the biggest ahas that we see with our clients when they get to the seven-figure mark, I think a lot of people think having a seven-figure business, and I'm talking, crossing over the $1 million mark,
yeah,
that they've struck gold, right? Like, they're in the big time, and they realize the same thing they realized when they got to six figures, that it's still not enough.
Yes.
Because for you to have a business that generates $1 million a year, it can vary how much of that goes to running the business. Let's say on average, it's going to take you $300,000 to $400,000 a year to run that business, right? And that is often before you pay yourself. And then let's say you want to be able to pay yourself $200,000. So now we're sitting at $500,000, right? So that other $500,000 that we have that's coming in, we have to make sure that we're appropriating it for retirement, for taxes, because there will be taxes to be paid if you are profiting $500,000 each year in your business, right? You're going to pay taxes on your profit, because hopefully by then you are at least filing taxes as an S Corp, if not a C Corp, because there is a fine line as to when it makes sense to consider being a C Corp, because your taxes are limited to 21%. So you have to have the right professionals kind of helping you along in the journey. And what we often see also is people are making more money, so they're spending more money.
Right.
Without recognizing that they are not only messing with their profitability, but they are also messing with what they take home.
Yeah.
Now, there are different strategies, and your tax professionals will hit you to the ones that are right for your business, where sometimes maybe it makes sense to run more things through your business than it does to take that income home and do it. But you want to make sure you're working with the right professionals to figure out which tax mitigation strategy is going to be best for you. Understanding the correlation between top line and bottom line is really, really important. And often for our clients, when they walk through the door, and I imagine you might see it the same way, they don't understand the correlation. They're really great at what they do, but they don't understand the significance of financial management. So we're often at that point in time having to talk to them about the significance of making sure that they have the right bookkeeper, CPA, and or tax strategist, and then introducing them to the point at which it makes the most sense to bring on a certified or chief financial officer. Because you don't necessarily need one at $500,000, but it becomes really important to think about one by the time you're making seven figures, so that the money is being appropriated in a way that you do create the income you want, and you can establish financial legacy while still having a scalable and profitable business.
I love it. This is such a juicy topic for me, because we see over and over is that business owners they're so excited about that top line revenue growth, and there's a meaning in their mind about how much is going to naturally flow to them when they're at a certain top line. And what they consistently underestimate is all of the overhead and the various expenses that come into play as they move up. And so what we see in I would say probably 80% of the time with small businesses, and this is it's sad and frustrating for me, because what we see is people they hit their top line revenue growth goal, but they're frustrated with what their take-home pay is, and even more importantly, what their freedom is. They don't feel the time and the freedom that they thought they were going to get. So they're like, well, this is lame. I hit this peak and everybody's celebrating, and there's a part of them that's celebrating, and they're real excited. And then they're like, yeah, but it feels kind of hollow, because I thought I was going to be at this, I thought I was going to be bringing home X number of dollars, and I'm not. And I thought I was going to have more time, and I don't. By the way, this is why we talk so much about it's not just about revenue growth. It's about the
Right.
profit and the freedom that comes. This is why
Absolutely.
automating your entire business is important, not just marketing. But the real thing that you're calling out is something I wrote about in Conquer the Chaos. And I've had a lot of people ask me about this. They say, hey, Clate, you know, in the personal keys, I set it up as you may recall, the 6 keys to success for entrepreneurs have 3 personal keys, 3 business keys. The 3
Yes.
personal keys are mindset, life vision, and rhythm of execution. And what I teach and what I've learned over the years is that to set up your life vision, I recommend people have 5 areas of their life that they focus on and put goals around. And those 5 areas that I recommend to entrepreneurs are right where there's a little bit of controversy in these 5 areas, and you're calling out why it's necessary that we have these 5 areas. And here's what the areas are: they're spiritual, physical, social. Those are pretty obvious. And then I say business and financial. And people say, the controversy that people always ask me is, they say, well, why do you need business and financial separately?
Yeah.
And I say, because I see over and over and over what Dr. Darnyelle just described, folks. And it is that you can have your business goals and you're killing it. You're doing great. And you think, yeah, this is all going great. But your financial goals personally are not working out, either because the bottom line's not flowing to you the way that you thought it would, or because you don't have the right professional advice helping you with your taxes and your strategies for how to run the business in a way that works for you personally, financially. And it's such a travesty when you see people that are feeling very like, hey, we're hitting our business goals, but it's not translating financially. So that's why I call out in the life vision, the 5 areas of life, as having business goals and financial goals separately, so that you don't run into the trap that most entrepreneurs, frankly, run into.
Absolutely.
And they blend
and I would
together
agree.
business and financial.
I would agree that finances definitely need to be different. Like, okay, let's just bottom line. We run businesses to solve problems for profit. And the reason we want profit
Yes.
is so we can live better. I don't know about anybody who's listening to this show right now, Clate, but listen, for me, I quit my good job where I made 6 figures a year to do better, to go
Yes.
to the next level, to be able to remove the financial cap from my ability to earn and to create a legacy.
Yes.
That's why I started my own business.
I love it.
What I love about the life vision of one of the 6 keys is that we have to, if we can borrow from Stephen Covey for a second, we have to begin with the end in mind.
Right.
When you are starting your business, or when you're at the point where you're ready to scale your business for sustainability, you have got to spend the time thinking through your vision and what you're doing it for.
Yes.
Because if you are running a business, growing a business, scaling a business in order to produce more freedom, to truly become the CEO of the company, strategically presiding over the company, but not working in the day-to-day, there is a way that you have to operate that is very different than
Yes.
being a service provider who just wants to make more money for the service they extend to the client that they serve.
Oh man, so well said. I mean, it's the difference. We see this transition happening as people go from solopreneur to a successful small business to becoming a CEO. It's this.
Yes.
It starts off as they're trading hours for dollars on their service, and then they start to build a team around it, and they start to get emboldened about the price and the problem they're really solving, and valuing it properly so that they can get paid and actually run a business around it. And then it gets to, and that's kind of the successful small business part. Then it gets to a part where they can really become the director and leader of the company as the CEO and build an organization that is solving problems for more and more clients and having the impact that they want. So I love that. And I know you have a method that you teach. I want to get to that in just a second, but there's 2 other things that you shared here. In when you were talking earlier, there were so many gems in that first thing that you said, and one of them you said is when they get the point, they can give themselves a raise. And I want to talk about that for just a second, because it's very, and then the second thing you said is the charging price, charging for their service appropriately. And I think that's a lot of times where small businesses get off, is they're not charging sufficiently, and they can't run. They can run a solopreneur business trading hours for dollars on a certain price, but to actually have a team and an organization, they've got to raise the price. So we'll talk about that in just a second. So the first thing though, I'm going to tell a personal story. I remember years ago, some people out there might know Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. When I started working with strategic coach, we were doing about $1.5 million a year in revenue. And we were trying to grow the business as fast as we could. So we were pouring everything back into the product and building it out. And I was taking home about $125,000 a year, something like that, right in that range. And you had to be at $100,000 a year to be in his program. But then there was a second tier that was $200,000. And I remember thinking, well, I want to be in that group that has these business owners that are a little bit more advanced. So I talked to them and I kind of got my way in, even though I wasn't at 200,000. And I had this very interesting experience during my first year. I had to realize that my mindset was actually set to believe that $100,000 was a lot of money. And this was not conscious, by the way. This was a very subconscious thing that happened. But I had this belief that there was deep inside of me that $200,000 was like, wow, that was a lot. You know, I didn't come from a family that anybody was making $200,000. That was foreign territory to me. So I didn't even put myself into that realm. But because I put myself into that room with people who were there, I remember after the second workshop, I just had this flip of the switch. I'm like, why the heck am I paying myself $125 when the business is growing like crazy? We're growing the business like 100% per year. And I was kind of stuck on that mindset. And so you said it's almost like you have to give yourself the permission to give yourself a raise. And I wondered if you could just speak to that, because I believe a lot of people are subconsciously held back by what they are making because they deep inside think they should only be making a certain amount, or they have a little bit of guilt, or they have no identity around making more, which is where the mindset holds them back. It's one of the keys to success. Any insights that you have on that when it comes to the mindset, when it comes to giving yourself a raise?
Absolutely. So this is the whole reason, by the way, we host our live event that we do every year called Move to Millions. We bring people together for 3 days to help them radically dismantle the money blocks and beliefs that are keeping them from more millions of dollars, right?
I love it.
And what we find is that we find a lot of truths. Number one, money, your ability to earn will always be based on what you think is a lot of money. And so if you don't raise your tolerance level, for using your personal example, Clate, your tolerance level was $125,000 until you got into proximity with people who had a higher tolerance level. And it immediately raised the way you saw yourself, the way you saw money, the way you saw how much you should be earning. There is so much power in proximity. And that's why, we hold this event. And this is why I'm always saying, get in the room with people that are going to instantly elevate you so that you can realize that the number you thought was big really isn't that big, right? It's why I say all the time, a 7-figure business is the floor, not the ceiling.
Yes.
So one of the reasons this happens is because as a culture here in the United States, and this has nothing to do with whether you're born into money or not. If I had to guess, just based on the work I've done and the people I've seen over the last 16 years, I would say that 90% of us, whether we're born wealthy, we're born in poverty, we're born middle class, we are taught to believe in the lack of money.
Yes.
And we are taught it, not necessarily that our parents sat us down and said, there's not enough money and you need to get what you can get and you need to store it and you need to work hard for it. But we learn it from what we watch our parents do. And as a culture, as a society, we get praised when we associate money with work. And so if we feel like we are not doing work enough to pay ourselves what we deem to be a lot of money, we will have a disconnect in whether or not we can actually pay ourselves that, because we are praised. When we get whatever the accolade is, when someone is celebrating you, what do they say? I know you worked really hard for this.
Right.
Great job. You did it. You worked hard. And so if money is coming to us easily, it goes against everything we were taught to believe as children, and it is somehow wrong, and we don't want any parts of it. So we will squelch down the desire for more and settle for what we deem to be appropriate based on what we were raised to believe as children. And again, it doesn't matter. I literally last week was having a conversation with a client who was born they were born into millions of dollars in their family, but what they were taught around money impacts the way they show up around money to this day, and
Mm-hmm.
how they set their prices and all of the questions they ask themselves. And so that's why we do a whole event around money mindsets. We do a little bit of, strategy and those types of things, but we spend the majority of our time dealing with your subconscious mind, because most of us, it's not a conscious thought.
That's
Consciously,
right.
we think
That's right.
that we can have a lot of money and we deserve a lot of money, but it's not your conscious mind that's the problem. It's your subconscious mind.
That is so well said. And for me personally, it was totally subconscious. If someone would have asked me on my way to that second workshop, I remember where I was on the road when I had the epiphany and was talking to Charisse, my wife. I'd come out of that second workshop, and if someone had told me going into that workshop, you don't have the right mindset to be making at least $200,000, I would have said, what are you talking about? I got myself into this group because I believe I should, I believe that should happen. And yet I came out of that workshop that second day, and I was talking with Charisse, and I said, I just had this epiphany. I just realized that even though I could accept and see that they're all making 200,000 plus, it wasn't until I spent time in the room with them, seeing them talk, hearing the way they talk, before I realized, wait, what am I doing? Why am I not giving myself permission?
Yeah.
And so it was totally subconscious, like you said. And all it took was the being in the room long enough for me to go, no, I belong in that realm. Like my mindset needs to be in that realm. So I love what you're sharing there. You're hearing it, folks. If you're not in the room, if you're not in the realm, get in the room, right?
Yeah.
If you're not in the realm of the level of income that you want, you need to be surrounded by people who are. And what it does is it causes you to start to recognize that there's nothing external. There are no good reasons to not be doing that. It's just the way you've got yourself set. You literally have your mind set in a certain way, and you just have to change that mindset. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. One last thing before we get to kind of your method. And I love the way I want to get to this, how you help people get to millions in 3 years instead of just getting to kind of a base level of income. But pricing, it's very much associated with our mindset around income, like you just said, our mindset around money. But what is it that if you could give advice to the audience here, what is it about their prices that might be holding them back? Just like their income might be holding them back. What is it about the prices, and what would you recommend to people who might be struggling a little bit with the general advice I frequently give people, that is, raise your prices. You're holding yourself back. So,
I don't care what you're charging. You probably need to charge more. And here's one of the formulas that we use. It's in my book, Move to Millions, the proven framework to become $1 million CEO with grace and ease instead of hustle and grind.
Love it.
And most people, they use the archaic pricing calculation, right? Which is direct costs plus general and administrative costs plus overhead. That's what they charge. Well, here's the problem with that. Number one, you haven't accounted for the time that it takes to serve the client.
Yep.
Number two, you haven't accounted for profitability. So the formula that I recommend, we still want to look at your direct costs. And in case you don't know what I mean when I say direct costs, those are the costs that cannot be avoided in order to provide the product or the service to the client, right? They are mandatory in order for you to pull off what you promised them.
Yep.
Your general and administrative costs are associated with the team and the people that are supporting you to deliver that product or service to that client. Your overhead are the fixed costs that you have, whether you have a client or not. So to add to that, we're then going to take the active time that you spend in service to that, you or the people on your team spend in service to delivering that solution. And in order to do that, we've got to first identify what your, fingers in air quotes, hourly rate is. Dan Kennedy calls it your base earnings target. And he calls it your base earnings target because we're entrepreneurs. We solve problems for profit. We don't trade money for time.
Right.
But every entrepreneur who was an employee first makes their prices based on trading hours for time.
That's
or
right.
money for time, right?
That's right.
So it doesn't matter where you worked. If you took your salary and divided it by 2,080, it came up with a dollar amount per hour, and you would say that was your dollar amount. When I first became an entrepreneur, when I was in corporate America, I made I think my hourly rate was like $75 an hour. So when I came out into entrepreneurship, I said, I'm going to charge $100 an hour. It sounded like a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I didn't take into consideration is that as a self-employed person, you have to pay self-employment tax, which is 15.7%. So before I even got a cut of that $100, I've already paid taxes on it. And I haven't accounted for my direct costs, my general and administrative costs, or my overhead, the things I have to pay no matter what. Right. So I'm at a loss by the time I start serving my client because I thought $100 an hour was a lot.
Yep.
So instead of just pulling numbers out of the air, we actually do the math. If the service that you're providing is going to be the equivalent of 200 hours of your time over the duration of the amount of time you're serving that client, we have to determine based on what you personally earn as a salary in your company, what an hour, a moment, a week, whatever your time is worth. We have to determine that. And then we also have to add your percentage of profitability on it. Now, the way we get ahead is through profit. It is through profit that we look at things like being able to pay our taxes, being able to invest in equipment or hire team. So if you're not charging profit, and I recommend at minimum your profit be 60%, but ideally 80 to 85% is what your profit margin should be on the services that you're offering. I know someone just swallowed their tongue at the thought of adding 85% to whatever they charge, but that's what you need to charge if you plan to have a team of people working on your behalf to solve the problems and offer solutions to the desires that your clients most want.
That's right. There you go. And in order to build a team around that, you have to think a little differently about the value that you provide to customers, and you have to help them see that value more clearly. Sometimes you need to augment the value with some of the things that your team can do versus what you could have done one-to-one.
Correct.
But you've got to build a value-based pricing instead of the cost-based pricing that you're describing. And that value-based pricing has to account for all of the indirect costs associated with running your business. And that's, I love how you pointed out that a lot of people come at it from, well, what do I get paid per hour? And it gets them into a place that is an unprofitable, unsustainable business. And so it locks them into this solopreneur world of trading hours for dollars. And it prevents them from having the kind of income they want, impact they want, and overall company that they're after in building their team. So you said it really well. I know we've got just kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on is you've written 8 books, which, by the way, I just got done writing my second book and it about killed me. So my level of respect for you is through the roof because 8 books is amazing. But you've written so much, you teach so much about how to build the system and the not just the sales, but you have a whole method for how you do this. Can you take just a second and talk about your proven formula to scale? Because I want nothing more than for businesses to get to millions in 3 years versus getting to what is kind of the average and the norm.
Yeah, absolutely. So we created the Move to Millions method because we wanted to find a streamlined way that we could help any type of business. And the beautiful thing about the method is that it does not matter what kind of business you have. Now, we personally choose to work with service-based businesses because we can control what you charge a little bit more than we can when you sell a product, right?
Yes.
There's only so much you can charge for your water bottle.
Right.
But when you're selling a service that adds value and saves, increases or reduces something for a client, you can charge more because there's more value associated with it.
Yep.
So inside of the method, our original method had 5 pillars and our revised, our 2.0 has 7. So I'll give you both. So the consistency across the board, first is strategy. And when I talk about strategy, I'm talking about the person that you serve, the promise that you make them, the solution that you're providing for them, the packaging that you put that solution in, the pricing associated with it, the positioning, the promotion, and the profitability. So we're going to get clear on all of that, right?
Yeah.
Then we're going to move into the sales infrastructure. Now, sales is separated from the strategy because ultimately we want you to create a sales infrastructure that allows you to sell to them in a leveraged format. So instead of getting one yes at a time, we want to show you how to give multiple yeses at a time.
One of the great lessons I learned in the business is that's one of the big changes when you go from one-to-one selling to one-to-many.
Yes, you need to be selling one to many. And inside of sales infrastructure, we're looking at the sales tool itself, your sales scripting, because there are some parts of the conversation that need to be scripted,
Love
your
it.
sales KPIs and your sales conversion. So we're looking specifically at those things, like how are you selling? What are you saying? How is it converting? Those types of things. Then from there, we move into systems. Now, we believe that there are 7 systems that are essential if you want to have a 7-figure business. You need a client management system. You need a general operations management system. You need a legal management system, a financial management system, a marketing management system, a sales management system, and a talent management system. And inside of each of those systems, you need standard operating procedures, standard automation procedures. You need workflows and process maps for every single thing that gets done. The core
You're
crux
speaking
of the
my language.
Yes, I know I am. The core crux of the foundation of your company is going to be based on those systems. It is through creating the systematic infrastructure that you give your business a valuation that would allow you to sell it for multiples of whatever your revenue on hand and or cash on hand is.
Love it.
From there, we move into your support. If you are truly a CEO, that means they're hiring your company. They are not hiring you. You are not performing the service. So you've got to have the right support team. And inside of there, we recommend 3 basic teams. You need a general operations team that is responsible for overseeing the day-to-day. You need a talent team that is responsible for your client service delivery. And you are going to need a marketing and sales team that's responsible for bringing in the leads and then closing those leads and turning them into revenue for the company. And then running through the center of strategy, sales systems, and support in the original framework is success mindset. Mindset is 95% of your success. Until you work on the 6 inches in between your ears, you will not feel 7 figures flowing through your business. So we really want to make sure that we take the time to work on mindset.
I love it.
Now, in the 2.0 version of the methodology, we expanded on success mindset because what we really recognize is that success mindset is extremely broad, but there are a lot of things that are in there. So we've broken success mindset into 3 pillars. The first one still being success mindset. And by that, we mean your money consciousness, your money mindset, the strategic vision that you hold for your company, and your leadership. Then we separated out spirituality. So we're talking about things like faith and obedience and surrender and forgiveness and alignment as its own pillar and principle. And then we separated out self-care. Because as the CEO of the company, if you are not making time to rest and increasing the amount of time you have, that time freedom to take care of yourself and to even pursue other passion projects, your company is not scalable and sustainable without you. And the ultimate goal is to get a company that is self-led so that you do not have to be present for your company to make money.
I love it. That's amazing. I can see why the move to millions method that you've created resonates so well with your clients. I think the way you went through that makes tons of sense to me. I mean, it's just very, the pieces
Very
that you've put together,
right?
very, very practical. It's a program that people can follow. If people want to learn more about that, where do they go?
Yeah, you can go to movetomillions.com.
Okay, movetomillions.com. And anything else that you want to share with the audience? I know we went a little over our normal time, but there was so many great things here. I had to dry out. But anything else that you wanted to share with the audience?
This has been great. I mean, the last thing that I'll leave with every single one of you is if you hold the desire to have a company that makes millions, you have that desire because it is within your power to do. It is likely that you will need support in order to do that, coaching, mentorship, software. Like you're going to need me and you're going to need Clate and Keith in order to build a business that does serve you financially and spiritually. And it is completely possible for you. I believe that the desire to have a business that generates at that level is there because it's your birthright. It's what you're supposed to experience. So as Clay said it so eloquently, if you're not in the realm of making millions, get into the rooms that will take you there.
That's
One
right.
such room is the room we hold every May, and Keep is there. They are a partner of Move to Millions Live that we hold. So if you go to movetomillions.com, you can learn all about our live event, Move to Millions Live.
Well, thank you, Darnyelle. We love partnering with you. Love what you do to empower entrepreneurs. Our purpose at Keep is to liberate and empower entrepreneurs to strengthen families, communities, and economies. We love partnering with people like you to do that. And I just appreciate you spending some time with us on the Conquer the Chaos podcast, so that our audience can learn from you and see the things that might be holding them back a little bit, and things they can do to get the mindset right, get the strategy right, and turn those SOPs into SAPs, as I say.
That's right.
All right. Thanks so much. This has been another episode of the Conquer the Chaos podcast. We so appreciate Dr. Darnyelle Jervey being with us. And you can check out more with her Move to Millions on her website, and get in that room if you feel like something's holding you back, because it does matter who you surround yourself with. Thanks, everybody, and keep growing.